Hello there, I'm Gloria Makarenko. Well, in this scary season, we have stories of people who get out of their comfort zone to follow their dreams. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, modern bodegas offering international snacks in our city. And taking charcuterie to the next level. But first, the life and times of BC business leader Michael Audain. He is a social activist, an officer of the Order of Canada, a BC business leader and philanthropist. Michael Ordain is now an author too, releasing his autobiography this week. It's called One Man in This Time. And Michael Audain has taken the time to talk to us today. Hello there.
Hi, Gloria. Good to see you.
Well, good to see you too. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot right off the top here. If I were to ask you, who is Michael Audain? What would you say?
Well, I've been sort of trying to discover that myself. So I've never spent much time thinking about my past because I'm always so busy with different projects in my business, in the area of culture. That's the visual arts that I take a lot of interest in, and of course with family. So, but one of the things I found when you start to write about your past, you do discover and learn a little bit more about yourself that you didn't know.
No, that must be a very intimate journey, I think, of self-discovery. And do you describe how your life never really had a formal business plan? You just kind of went where your interests took you. So how much of your success would you say has been just good timing, and how much of it is recognizing a good thing when you see it and just going for it?
Well, I don't really know how successful I've been, but I never thought of life really in those terms. But I guess a lot of people have over the years did ask me to account for myself. How did you, as a fairly social activist, and when you were younger, how did you become a residential developer? Not too many of my colleagues in the development industry have that background, and I didn't know myself, but in thinking back about it, I think Lady Luck really played a large part of the role, because there were times I could have gone in easily in other directions, and I have played many parts. But thinking back, if I'd been successful in getting the nomination, the NDP nomination for Vancouver Kingsway in the early 1970s, maybe I would have had a career in Parliament. On the other hand, if I'd stuck with the airline that I was working for in the 1950s, maybe I would have ended up flying one of those big buses in the sky for most of my life. But things changed. I had some breaks, some ups and downs, and then halfway through my life, I suddenly found myself in starting in business, which was not something I never really aimed for in the first place.
Well, it turns out you have quite a touch with that too, and it's interesting to hear how there were not one fork in the road, but it sounds like you had many forks in the road along that life's path. Now, but let's go back, because you did mention social activism. What do you still think about when you remember your Freedom Rider days?
Well, I do think about it occasionally, and it's more that things have changed so much over the years. When I was involved in the civil rights movement, it was kind of okay for someone with my color of skin to be involved, and I was very much welcome down in the South in Mississippi. But I'm not sure it's the same today. I think that different groups in society want to make their own presence known and not depend on other groups. But I come from the Martin Luther King days when we were all encouraged to get involved. It was black and white together in those days, but things have changed. Maybe they needed to change, and as people don't need such a broad-based coalition of young people. But my heart is still very much in for change in society and for social justice, and it's just that I also spend my time on other issues at the moment.
Michael, you've had quite a life so far. How does it feel to just lay it all out there in this book?
Well, I thought I would do so. It's probably a lot more laid out than what some people would expect a businessman of my age to do. But I felt that I should try to account for where I've been and some of the strange things I've been involved in, and also the good times and the times when if I seem successful today, as you say successful, it's not a word I use, but there's been times when I've had great despair also, and it's a question of how you deal with that. And but I've been so fortunate to live in Vancouver and British Columbia, the two places I love so much in the world, and it's a great privilege to be able to help out in a small way when we can do that.
Michael Audain, what a pleasure, and congratulations on this memoir.
Thank you so much, Claudia.
And we do have a copy of Michael Audain's One Man in His Time book to give away. For a chance to win, send us an email, ourvancouver@cbc.ca. ourvancouver@cbc.ca. Please put Audain in the subject line. And good luck.
My name's Marcel Greer, and this is Our Vancouver.
Now, I love this part of the show when we get to showcase a number of the photographs sent in by you, our audience. This week, the fall colors and wet weather has been your inspiration, apparently. Pravin Ananth was out in the mist one day last week and captured this moment in time. So lovely. Thank you, Pravin. Shiva Tajik is also a fan of the fall colors. This was taken before those coastal winds blew so many of the leaves off the trees. So thanks for capturing that, Shiva. And finally, Zenon Jozovic took in the moody weather of the season from the perch of Rocky Point Pier in Port Moody. What a lovely image. Thanks very much for sharing that. And do send us more. Just email your favorite photographs to us, bcphotos@cbc.ca. That's bcphotos@cbc.ca. Now, the UN Climate Change Conference is set to start in Glasgow, and this follows a summer where the impacts of a warming climate were hard to ignore, right? There was the record heat, the wildfires affecting much of the country, and Vancouver's Katie Lee is a young activist, and she's decided to work towards a more sustainable future for her and her peers. So here's how she sees her social media work with the sustainabilities.
Hi, I'm Katie, a climate activist from Socalled Vancouver, which is the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm with the youth organization Sustainabiliteens, and our organization was responsible for orchestrating Vancouver's biggest climate strikes, mobilizing over 100,000 people in September 2019. We're here to fight for climate justice centering around equity and joy. We're a force to be reckoned with. Personally, I've been involved in the movement for nearly 2 years, and social media has been a big part of my work. Seeing the power of a post is immense, and that's why I love working as a sustainability and social media coordinator. In this episode, I'm going to explore how social media can be an incredible tool, but also show you how real change doesn't just happen online. Let's face it, For better or for worse, we spend a lot of time on our phones. Social media has quickly become a source of news and information for a large portion of the population. A recent report by Reuters showed that over 50% of Canadians use social media to access news on a regular basis. Social media platforms including Facebook and Instagram have been incredible tools for sustainability. We use it to share information about the climate crisis and to let people know when and where we'll be protesting. We take a lot of effort in writing and designing our posts, and we've learned a lot about how to create engagement with climate justice issues. But as climate activists, we know that likes and shares do not translate into measurable change. We can't simply Instagram our way out of the climate crisis or systemic issues. We need people in power to step up, and when they don't, we have to, because we all know about how dire climate change and its effects are. In the sustainability, we know that showing up works. To address the climate crisis in Vancouver, we had to start at the beginning, and the first step for us was getting the city to formally recognize that we are in a climate emergency. But declarations mean nothing without action. So in November 2020, we showed up to the City Hall once again to support the Climate Emergency Action Plan, and to make sure the city's declaration was followed by concrete action. Let's take a look at how we got all 35 sections of the plan passed. Okay, so what was the first step in getting the Climate Emergency Action Plan passed?
We knew we needed to put pressure on the city, so we started to plan an action. We created toolkits for businesses, students, and NGOs with other organizations.
What was the next step?
Next up, we needed support from city councillors, so we reached out to representatives across the city to schedule meetings to talk about our action plan.
Building up to the action, we reached out to the media, sent them an outline of our message, and invited them to the event.
Now it was time for the event, so we got Sustainabilitians and some other organizations to come out to City Hall. We made posters, brought a microphone and speaker, and created a hashtag for the event.
And finally, when it was time for council to vote, we signed up to speak at City Hall to advocate for our action plan.
Thanks for sharing these steps and creating change in real life. As the sustainability and members of the youth climate movement, we are here to make meaningful change for the long run because we are based in joy and community. Anyone and everyone can make up an important piece in our overall collective action. If you're able to, there are so many ways that you can sustain the fight for climate justice beyond social media. You could write a letter to your MP, join a local climate group, you could use your passions and interests in the fight against climate catastrophe, and as a tool for climate advocacy. But it doesn't have to be protesting or advocating. It can be as simple as having a conversation about climate. About justice, I mean, we do need to get off our phones anyway. It could start with being more present and talking to the people around us.
Coming up, Johanna Wagstaffe also has climate change news about local efforts to reduce the impact of a warming world.
This Vancouver neighborhood is taking charge of climate change in their own backyard, block by city block.
Through this workshop series, we will guide participants through identifying what climate change means to their neighborhood and then turning that into their own visions of what their neighborhood can look like if it's more climate friendly. So let's begin.
Cheryl Ng is the leader of a University of British Columbia initiative that asks people to first consider climate change by simply walking their local streets.
And if you can take measures from me, that would be great.
And taking a closer look.
We want you to count the trees very quickly. It's not very super scientific, it's just a rough estimate.
Are the rooftops dark, absorbing hot sun? Or are they a space for plants to grow? Is there greenery on the ground? Or is it blacktop as far as the eye can see?
Can you see, hear, notice anything that emits carbon?
The goal is to engage everyday people in achievable change that's rooted right in their own communities.
We wanted to turn all this negativity into positivity instead. And we thought, well, what better way to start than to just, go to people right where they live.
Cheryl Ling hopes these workshops will teach people to see climate change solutions in their daily lives.
Hello.
Hi, Rory.
Hi, come on in.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Rory Filer is in this workshop, and after last summer's heat dome, he started thinking about what he could do about climate change, an idea that literally started as a seed.
On 32nd here, it's full of trees, full of chestnuts and acorn oak trees. So I had the idea to pick up some of those chestnuts and acorns and try to sprout some trees out of them.
6 sprouts later, minus lunch for a few squirrels, one growing chestnut tree remains. Rory is hoping his future tree will not only help provide shade for the increasingly hot days, but help to pull out and store carbon from the atmosphere.
Well, I have 2 girls, and they're pretty young, and I want to make sure that there's not that the effects of climate change are minimal for them and for their children.
Planting a tree here and a tree there might seem modest, but researchers say if Canada is going to achieve its Paris climate goals, that's reducing emissions 30% by 2030, some of it is going to have to come from suburban neighborhoods, like this one. Half of the country's residential blocks will have to be carbon neutral in 9 short years.
We do have to find ways to make that connection to just local people, ordinary folk, who are trying to figure out what to do, and there is this enormous anxiety about all the doom and gloom, and it's depressing what the impacts might be if we don't make these changes.
For Stephen Shepard, thinking about how to close this gap has been his life's work. 5 years ago, he started the Cool Kits project in Vancouver, which has now evolved into the current walking workshops.
What are you going to do about climate change? You can deny it's happening, you can be very worried about it, or you can actually do something about it, especially if it's fun and positive and makes a difference, and make something visible on the ground.
And it's catching on. He's now working with groups in places like Mississauga and Vancouver Island. This template can be adapted to work anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. You can picture it if you try. A few solar panels here, a garden box there, a few extra trees. This is the stuff inspiring neighbors who've never thought of themselves as climate change trailblazers until now.
Encouraging my community, my neighborhood to take on initiatives. Maybe they're simple at first, a community garden, to more elaborate, like looking at bike routes within our neighborhood.
So while the world meets in Glasgow, this community and the research team urging them on will be working toward a change they're invested in.
I'm hoping to act on climate change as soon as possible and make a better future.
A brighter future built neighborhood by neighborhood. Johanna Wagstaffe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Johanna, thank you very much. You are watching Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought many, many changes. Claudia Mason left her job to follow her love of food. She owns Claudias Kitchen, which focuses on the ever-popular charcuterie world. Claudia, hello there. And there you are in your kitchen right now.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to my kitchen. Nice to see you.
Now, and why did you go down the charcuterie path?
Well, to be honest, hashtag the pandemic made me do it. I was really just trying to bring friends and family together with my charcuterie condiments. And then everyone asked me what went with what and if they could, get some hints on how to pull things together. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and quit my job and, decided to start a charcuterie condiment business.
Okay, it's starting. Now, I've got some of your condiments here. You've sent in some of these. So what I would love for you to do is take us through some of your boards and show us just where each of these flavors can fit into the picture, okay?
Absolutely. So what we tried to do here is just put together a few simple vignettes, I like to call them. Your charcuterie board does not have to be, super complicated. Just you're looking for a nice, tasty bite. So the first one I'm going to show you is our sour cherry compote, sweet, savory, and obviously very sour. And we pair that with a lovely brie, some lovely Marcona almonds, some fresh berries, and some hot honey, a new product I have coming out. And just some, Vancouver famous Leslie Stowe crackers and people are blown away by the sort of juxtaposition. And so, you're always looking for different textures, different, you've got the smoothness of the brie and the crunchiness of the dried figs and some almonds in there. So this is a crowd favorite for sure.
I love that. And even a few berries in the mix there too for a little pop of color and taste. I love that too. So keep moving on, because I know
Sure.
that people can do a lot of things. You can get really artful with these boards, right?
Absolutely. So my love of mustard came from Montreal, where I grew up. And so, paired with any kind of meat is fantastic. I've got some pan-fried chorizo from local company. I've got some Two Rivers meats in here, Leslie Stoll crackers, some great Polish pickles. And, it's a sweet and savory hot mustard. It's just very simple to pick this stuff up at the grocery store and have people be wowed in a quick minute too. You just pull it out of your fridge and put it on a board.
Well, again, it's really interesting. You're not just putting them in a slab, right? There's a little bit of easy to pick, you sort of, even the way that you've got the meats lined up, just so that you just pick one out. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be too fussy.
Exactly. Not too fussy. And we always put, all sorts of fresh fruit. Sometimes we even have potato chips on the table, just so people know it's not fancy, but they get to try something new.
What's that one there? That looks like a blue cheese, or what have you got there?
This is what we've got is our onion jam, again, sweet and savory. We've got a blue cheese from Bosa Foods and a Canadian cheddar and some lovely fresh bread from a bakery on Commercial. Again, picked up a couple of things and all of a sudden you put a grape and this on fresh bread and you're set to go.
I love it. So how did you decide on the flavors that you decided to put into these, again, these jars that I was mentioning? You've taken us through a few of them. Like you mentioned a lot, sweet, savory, kind of everything going on in there.
Absolutely. So just talking about the four sort of different flavors or flavor profiles, I'll say, we've got an orange fennel mostarda here, which is really high in acid. It's fresh navel oranges and chopped fennel, almost like a pickle. So, you've got some acid here. I wanted really sweet and savory with the onion jam, sour with the sour cherry, and then hot with the mustard. So you're covering a lot. And, it's a starter pack. It's a tasting. And this is what I would serve you if you came to my house. I really would. This is, we'd be having a glass of wine perhaps. And then, I'd pull out some meat and cut it up and really make it so you're trying something a little bit different.
I'll be right over. I'll
Okay.
be right over. It looks so appetizing. Now, you gave up your full-time job to do this. How's it going?
It's going fantastic. So as of actually Monday, we had our first big order, retail order. So we're in Nature's Fair, which is in the Okanagan and White Rock, etc. They've got 7 locations. So we start with them just after Halloween. I'm really excited about that. And then, of course, we've got pop-ups and our online business. So it's going, had a lot of friends and family support for sure. But now it's interesting to see what others think and how they're enjoying it.
Well, your pandemic pivot looks pretty darn appetizing, Claudia. Thank you very much, and all the best to you.
Thank you.
If you want to go and see some live music, Victoria Indie Darlings, Current Swell. They play in Vancouver at the Commodore, November 5th.
And I know we weren't perfect, but I never felt this way for no one.
And Scott Bradley's Postmodern Jukebox is known for their original takes on popular songs. They bring back older styles to the top hits of today. The show is at the Centre, November 6th.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music, here to share with you a really cool new collaborative cover song that was put together by a Vancouver-based supergroup of musicians dedicated to standing up to anti-Asian racism that has been on the rise since the pandemic began. They call themselves the Asian Persuasion All-Stars. They're made up of musicians that have performed with artists like Sarah McLachlan, Kelly Fleming, Roots Roundup and the Hard Rock Miners, and China Syndrome. Here's the Asian Persuasion All-Stars in action. That's the Asian Persuasion All-Stars with their live rendition of the ska classic, One Step Beyond. Now, members came together earlier this year to form this band in an effort, as I mentioned, to combat racist actions and attitudes. Besides some live shows, they have also recorded a benefit single where they once again dug deep into ska music history, this time going back to 1984 and this song. Yeah, that is the legendary anti-racist tune, Racist Friend, from the Special, aka an incarnation of the iconic UK ska band, The Specials. And from their formation, The Specials were always about integrating musicians of different races and cultures. So skip ahead to 2021, and that song has received a new jolt of life thanks to Vancouver's Asian Persuasion All-Stars, who recorded this version. There you go. That's the Asian Persuasion All-Stars, a Vancouver supergroup coming together to combat racism through music with their cover of Racist Friend. All proceeds from the sale of that version of the song through Bandcamp goes to Eliminate Hate, an advocacy group aimed at ending anti-Asian racism in all forms. Racist Friend by the Asian Persuasion All-Stars is a song that you need to add to your playlist for this week. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. Thanks to Michael Warner for the shirt. Be kind to each other. I'll check in with you again soon.
The Asian Persuasion All-Stars are going to be playing the opening party for the Vancouver Asian Film Festival at the D6 Lounge in the Park Casino. That's Thursday, November 4th. And Grant Lawrence is going to be back with another pick for your playlist next week. Coming up, a connection between a BC rapper and his biggest fan deepens as they both seek sobriety. You are watching Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, a Prince George man's story of addiction and recovery is the inspiration for a new single from a multi-platinum Canadian rapper. As Andrew Curiata reports, the pair is using the song to raise awareness and raise money for people struggling with similar issues.
It's a story that connects an award-winning rapper in Los Angeles to one of his biggest fans in Prince George.
Big C, I'm writing about a story about a fan of mine. Slowly we became
whose life story inspired a new song. And Chris Vigu still can't believe it's actually happened.
Absolutely surreal. It's a dream come true.
For years, Vigu was a familiar face at shows put on by Swollen Members, a multi-platinum Vancouver rap group who dominated the charts in the early 2000s. Eventually, that fandom turned into a friendship with group founder Madchild.
I went to every single concert that came through our city. And each time I went to a concert, I got to get a little bit more of Madchild, meeting him backstage, getting a hat signed.
He would go out of his way to make it a great experience every time I came through and played in the city of Prince George.
But at the same time, both men were struggling with addiction. Vigu had been bullied as a kid and turned to drugs and gangs to cope.
Didn't feel safe in my own neighborhood, right? That's not right.
Meanwhile, Madchild says he spent more than $3 million on an addiction to painkillers, which nearly killed him before getting sober. A struggle he's opened up about in his music. Vigu also got sober, starting a family and career, but only recently shared that story with Madchild.
He just started spilling his guts and telling me his story. And I was so blown away.
The rapper was inspired to write a song about Vigu's journey in the hopes it would help others. Vigu says he was nervous about going public with his addiction, but he's already been contacted by people who say they are seeking help after hearing his story.
The song saved the guy's life. He said, I was going to take my life this morning, and I heard the song, and I'm here because of your song. Right from day one, we just wanted to help one person only, and it did.
Coming back from addiction is the hardest fight you'll ever fight, but it's the greatest reward you're ever going to get in life.
It's been a real pleasure getting to know you, my G. I had no idea you went through all that struggle. Now that I know your whole story, bro.
Funds from the single are being donated to a local recovery center. Andrew Crietta, CBC News, Prince George.
Andrew, thank you so much for that story. Now, here's another story about a new lease on life. This time, it's the city of New Westminster and its downtown area. Leaders fear that the historic neighborhood is falling apart. And as John Hernandez reports, the Royal City is looking at some ways to revive it.
The customers are few and far between inside this health shop on the New West Strip. And if you look outside, you can see why.
I feel like the construction that it's happening right now, it affects us more than the pandemic.
This once bustling hub of BC's oldest city has been hit by a perfect storm.
The street isn't necessarily a place that's inviting all the time for people who are living in the neighborhood.
Kilometer-long construction for a new sewer line has disrupted traffic and parking, a gut punch to businesses already struggling through the pandemic. Many have already shuttered. 4 more businesses were destroyed by a fire earlier this year. And then there are the old and derelict buildings. They're an eyesore for business owners like Karima Jivraj.
If we're going to have a vibrant downtown New West that's welcoming to everyone, we shouldn't have buildings like that.
It all adds up to a new downtown recovery strategy. City Council voted in favor of formulating a recovery plan last week. The goal is to make the neighborhood a more vibrant and livable place to be.
There's an incredible potential. I mean, this is a real downtown. New West is a small community, but we have an actual downtown. We have new buildings, we have old buildings.
Chief among the action items is figuring out what to do with these old and empty buildings, which could be acquired and redeveloped by the city if they're left to rot.
That would probably be the last resort, but if a site was important enough to the downtown and the city felt that it was important to bring those revitalization efforts, those are the things we might want to consider.
As for the construction, the mayor says it's a necessary evil. If the sewers don't get fixed, engineers report that it could result in a sinkhole.
And I think delaying that project would have potentially put downtown at risk of an even more catastrophic situation.
It's now up to city staff to figure out just how to make better use of these streets, support businesses, and hopefully draw new ones in. John Hernandez, CBC News, New Westminster.
John, thank you very much. Now, it's not just New West in need of some love and attention. People who live and work in Vancouver's Chinatown are being asked what is needed to revitalize their neighborhood. And as Janella Hamilton reports, one goal is to have Chinatown designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
This one's kind of cool.
Shopping in Chinatown with her parents is one of Kimberly Wong's fondest childhood memories. Wong is fifth-generation Chinese-Canadian. She says her family was among the first Chinese settlers to call the area home.
My family was brought over partially as indentured laborers to work on the Canadian Pacific Railway. And that is a history that Chinatown was built on. Chinatown was created as a space for these laborers.
And while that heritage is still very much alive today, the vibrancy of the community has dimmed.
A lot of the businesses were seeing a decrease in folks coming way before it was called a global pandemic even. The biggest thing is trying to, really push back against this connection of China and Chinatown to the virus. I think it's been a big fear for them around anti-Asian hate.
To help address some of these challenges, Wong, along with other community leaders, created an online forum called Chinatown Reimagined. The forum is a platform to gather feedback and share stories of local businesses. Wong hopes this information will help put Chinatown on the map as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
This is an important piece of history and heritage and a space that deserves to be preserved and deserves to be, protected.
With crime up and tourism down, many longtime businesses in Chinatown have had to shutter their shops.
A lot of these businesses rely quite heavily on foot traffic, people coming to the neighborhood, even as other businesses were shifting to an online model and all of these delivery apps and things like that. A lot of Chinese businesses, whether a lot of these older traditional ones in the neighborhood, struggle to get on those platforms.
So it's a very beautiful roasted tea.
Olivia Chung is a business owner in Chinatown. Her family came to Vancouver in the 1970s.
First thing I say, wow, I said, this is almost like Hong Kong. It's so vibrant. You have to walk by the street, shoulder to shoulder.
In 1981, Chung's dad opened one of the first tea shops in Chinatown. But she fears the area is not as welcoming as it once was.
Occasionally we open up business, there's tons of needles. We wish that Chinatown get cleaned up a lot more.
Those pushing for the UNESCO designation hope it could lead to more support from the government and ultimately help revitalize the area. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up, Peking duck Pringles and elderberry Fanta. Just two of the international flavors found in modern-day bodegas in our city. Welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, have you ever tried Peking duck-flavored Pringles or elderberry lemon Fanta? Those are just some of the treats that you can find at two Vancouver businesses specializing in rare snacks. And although both were able to open and expand to second locations during the pandemic, as Ashley Moliere shows us, they weren't fully spared by the effects of COVID-19.
My favorite Pringles are the Peking duck.
These modern-day bodegas are bringing rare snacks and drinks to Metro Vancouver. Lucky's Exotic Bodega and Dank Mart import their goods from regions of Europe, Asia, and South America. Both businesses opened in 2020 in East and South Vancouver. Sales took off, with each store expanding to a second location.
So I came here specifically for spooky treats. So I got some of these Boo Oreos.
Popcorn Kit Kat, never seen it.
I also got some Skittle gummies.
I'm TJ Voss. I'm one of the owners here at Lucky's Exotic Bodega. For us, the bodega is a New York or a California term, and it's
supposed to be the place in the community where everyone congregates. Everyone comes, they come get their lottery tickets, they come get their, advice, they get their chopped cheese, they get their snacks, but it's that community feel, that community vibe where the owner knows all the kids by name as they grow up, and that's what we wanted to emulate. We wanted to be somewhere where the community could be proud of us. With this whole trend of exotic snacks now booming and everyone wanting to be on it, we take pride in our curation of the items. We make sure that everything that comes in here is at a reasonable price. Just the other day, someone messaged me on Instagram and said, well, how much are the Pokemon Oreos that are gonna come be? I'm like, same price as all the other Oreos. But she's like, but everyone wants these. I'm like, I understand, but for me, it's the same. It should not be priced higher because everyone wants it. Myself grew up with a single mother, so for me to have prices that are very fair to everyone was very imperative.
Importing these snacks has been challenging due to rising shipping costs.
Before the pandemic, containers would cost anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500. Containers are now costing somewhere around $15,000 sometimes. A lot of people see it as a quick buck. If you're trying to look for a cash cow, this is not the one. This is a purely a labor of love.
But Dankmart owner Spencer Sangera keeps his shop running in memory of his close friend and business partner. His partner was killed near Dankmart after it opened in 2020. Police have arrested a suspect in that case.
We used to just be up all night snacking, just trying everything from around the world, and it was our passion. That's what really keeps me going every day. When the days when I'm tired or, the days where I'm feeling a little down, missing my bro, I just think how can we make him proud?
Both businesses say they hope to open more stores in other Vancouver neighborhoods.
Whether you come in here and spend $1 or whether you come in here and don't spend anything, you're gonna get the same treatment. Without the customer, without the community support, we're nothing. And we're not here to take away from the community, but only to give back to the community.
Ashley Mollier, CBC News, Vancouver.
Ashley, thank you so much. Now, the candy in that story is mostly for adult tastes. Halloween is where children of all ages get to ask strangers for sweets, right? As long as they wear a costume, of course. Well, Bob Nixon takes us back to 1991 and the popular costumes of the day.
This is good. This could be you out there. If somebody invented Valentine's Day to sell you flowers, Halloween was invented to sell you silliness.
I also need some grease paste.
What are you going as?
I'm a dead guy. The purple stuff, that's for decomposed color here. And then we got your black, and this is an underbase, and then the latex and the gelatin to give the effect that I've been rotting for some time.
What are you going as?
We're going as sheiks. Arabian sheiks, yeah.
Both of you?
Yeah. Both of us, yeah.
Oh. Okay, what are you going as?
My mom.
I want a Bart Simpson costume. Where is it?
Bart Simpson. Well, we've just sold out of our Marge Simpson, and Bart went about a week ago. So.
Well, look, you guys only sell 1 week of the year, and you sell out. I don't understand.
I do have a wig though. If you want a wig and you want to do the makeup, and we have little eyes, so you can put that all together. Yeah, we've got those.
Oh, so I can sort of camp up my own Bart.
A little wig over there, and we got the makeup and the eyes. Yeah.
Christmas comes early for this costume store. It gets 30% of its yearly sales at Halloween. I don't know why, but this guy does.
I kind of got carried away. That's a nutty hobby of mine. It only happens once a year, so.
For the CBC Evening News, I'm Bob Nixon in Greasepaint, BC.
Now, when we bring you stories here at CBC Vancouver, we have award-winning photographers out capturing the images that say so much. Still images can add context and bring a lot more to the understanding of an event or an issue. So here are some of the latest from what happened this past week. And that's all for our Vancouver for this week. I hope you can join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. For now, goodbye.